We've been around for 6 years, and we've moved from a place where we were educating people on what a smart community could look like, which 6 years ago was the omnipresent conversation, to becoming a pretty hot commodity. I think it's something that's on a lot of people's minds. But don't worry, we're not talking about Dwelo. That's not the point of this. Today we want to talk about something that we're all dealing with and something that's changed quite a bit. So we're all sitting here now, no longer wearing masks, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, quite literally, and it almost feels like we've sort of found ourselves back in the norm, right? We're sort of back in the center of the road. But there's a few things that over the past 2 years have changed that we just don't think are going to change back, and they're going to be different for a long time. So I wanted to kick off this session with the premise that the work environment that we're dealing with today is the most flexible work environment probably in the history of civilization. I can't think of a time, and don't quote me on this and don't test me on my historical knowledge. I'm not going back to ancient Greece to see if they had more flexible work hours than we did, but I think I'm pretty safe in my statement. It's that key word, flexibility, that I want to focus on. Flexibility, how did we get here? Why are we in the place we are right now? How does that flexibility impact multifamily, probably more than almost any other industry? And then what we can do basically to take advantage of flexibility so that it becomes an asset, a type of superpower in the multifamily space rather than a liability or a concern. So that's the goal. And I'm going to do it differently. If you have a question and it happens to be something that you want to chat about before we move on, go ahead, raise your hand, interrupt me. Let's make sure that it becomes some type of a conversation, especially since 20 minutes can be a short time. I want to make sure that if you want to chat about something, we can. So first, just a couple stats. The one that I wanted to highlight is that 32% of remote workers feel that if the ability to work remotely was taken away from them, they'd just quit. How convenient. That's awesome. It's my generation, so I know how they feel. I might do the exact same thing. I've been living this life. But when do you think the last time was that someone's like, oh, you don't want to give me a benefit? You don't want to give me a type of paternity leave or maternity leave that I expect? I'll just quit. How did we find ourselves in this type of scenario? Well, what happened was 2 years ago, we all got shut in our homes. So we're dealing with a pandemic. So we basically got forced to work from home. We had no choice. Well, then what we realized is it doesn't matter if we're in Bel Air or if we're in Birmingham, we can work for Amazon. We can work for Facebook. We can go find whatever job we want because everyone's at home. And all of a sudden, people just found themselves going and finding opportunities or looking for opportunities that no longer had to do with the location they lived in. So a lot of our multifamily communities are located because they're close to jobs. Well, what happens when the job becomes virtual and you can work from anywhere? Well, they quit, basically, when they ask you to go back to the office. They call this the Great Resignation. I don't know if you all have heard this terminology. I actually think it was mentioned in the Zigo presentation. Since November, we've had 4.5 million people quitting their jobs. Not getting fired, not getting let go. They're choosing to leave the company that they're working for. Why? Because they can work for anyone in the nation now. So what's happening is they're basically voting with their feet and saying, if you're not going to give me this freedom, I'm going to walk. So what are employers doing? Well, they're reacting. So the employees are acting, the employers are reacting. Like I said, we think this is the most flexible age of employment ever, but really how, where, and when people work, that's not a differentiator. That's table stakes. If you are a local employer and you say, no, you have to come into the office, they could go work for Facebook or Amazon or Netflix or some other company that happens to be in South Carolina but allows a work from home environment. My current employee base is all over the nation, and our company has actually gone completely and fully remote. So when we're interviewing people, they could be from any city in the nation. And since employers are now advocating this and they're supporting it, and obviously employees are enacting this, it really does trickle down to where do we call home? So, final word is, we don't think this idea of working from home is going to go anywhere. I think it's here to stay. The second that it started to be cemented in is when massive organizations like Microsoft said, hey, we're going to bring everyone back into the office, and they lost employees left and right, and they went back on their word and said, nope, you work from where you want, because we can't afford everyone leaving. So why does this matter for the multifamily space? Well, the key demographic for any employer is the 25 to 54-year-old age group. And 25 to 44-year-old age groups make up 70% of the renter population. The whole world wants somebody between the age of 25 and 44 to work for them. That's exactly who they're going after. So the majority of the people who are going to be renting your communities are also the key demographic that they're looking at to be employed from people who will give them flexibility. So a work from home environment is necessary for the demographic you're trying to get to move in, is basically what we're trying to say here. When asked where they want to work, other than the office, they didn't say a co-working space. They didn't say some big group office. They said, I want to work from home. People's homes, when they're 25 to 44, happen to be their unit, right? Their apartment. So how do we take what some people could look at a negative and turn it into a positive in the multifamily space? How do we react to this so that it's now your superpower rather than a liability? We think there's 4 ways. The first one is through access. Really smart, like a smart home, smart community, really smart strategy around access. Internet has been more important, or has become more important than ever before. The environment, the physical environment, where they're living, where they're doing their work, we think that's important. And the last one is allowing a personal experience, which I just want to call flexibility. We'll talk a little bit more about that in detail, but we need to create environments that are flexible for people who are willing to quit their job if it's not flexible for them. They're definitely willing to move if they're willing to give up a paycheck if it's not flexible. So first things first, this is sort of in my wheelhouse. I've been working on access management since I started in multifamily. There are a lot of needs for someone who works from home when it comes to access. I don't care if it's DoorDash, I don't care if it's Uber Eats, I don't care if it's the Amazon delivery person. They need seamless access to the community. They need to be able to open the gate. They need to be able to allow them in. They need to be able to control access. They want to be able to go across the entire community. They want to be able to let their coworkers or their friends come in without having to meet them at the gate. Out of curiosity, I know we already asked about the electric cars, so who here can start their car with their cell phone? Keep them up. Okay, now, just for fun, put your hand down if your car's not a Tesla. Not a Tesla? Yours was a Tesla. Oh, yours is not a Tesla, and you can start it with your car. That's awesome. I thought the Tesla hands were all going to stand up. Now, I had a great joke prepped, but you guys dropped them all. Nobody wanted to be called out as a Tesla owner, since it's like 90% of you out there, and you all have a club group meeting after this to go hang out together. Anyways, the idea is we want to be able to get around with our phones. We don't need a hard key anymore. We want key codes and phones, because we want to be able to start our car and walk into our unit without having to look for anything else. And you never lose your phone. I don't know how that happens, but you never lose your phone. You lose keys like it's nothing. So intuitive and strategic access management. The other nice thing about this is security. We log who accesses occupied units. You can track who it was, when they entered, when they left. And we can also make the codes that they use expire. So all of a sudden, they did their 3 hours of work. That code's never going to work again. When they go back to the unit, they're going to have to ask for a new code. a great example is we've helped a couple maintenance team members get off the hook thinking that something was stolen from a unit. Well, we know what codes they had, and we know none of those codes were used, and all of them were expired. It was a great way for us to help in that situation. So we think access management is a great aspect from work from home that's important. The second is reliable and immediate internet access. People don't want to move in and take 3 days to get Comcast out there, Xfinity or Cox or whoever, to get the modem, excuse me, to get the modem set up. Here, let me take a quick drink. To get the modem set up and to all of a sudden be watching Netflix. They don't want to wait. They want internet ready. They want to move in and they want to be good to go. There's a lot of ways to do this, but one of the most interesting statistics on this is that video conferencing in multifamily spaces is up 212%. That is a lot of bandwidth. Then on top of that, there's gamers. I'm not one of them, but I have friends who will spend like 7 hours on Call of Duty in a night, and if the internet glitches, they will move. I promise you. That is not acceptable on their end. It is a top concern, and it has always been a top concern for the resident. So there's a couple ways to do this. The internet that we have going on right here is a managed Wi-Fi internet access. You could be in this room, or you could go to your actual hotel unit, and you would only have to log in once, and you'd have internet community-wide. That internet could be provided by the owner of the community, and they can actually make revenue, net operating income, by being that provider. Another way you could do this is by setting up modems, pre-wiring internet, and also being the internet service provider, but the internet is always there. It's omnipresent. So as soon as you turn it on to the unit, they have internet. All they have to do is sign up for the terms and conditions, and then they're gaming, and that's all they really want. So that's obviously a work from home need. The third one is just the environment. I think we need to start re-looking at floor plans. We need to start looking at the little nooks or the little open areas where a desk could be located and people could dedicate to their work from home environment. I read a lot of articles in preparation for this, and a whole bunch of people had setups that were probably janky, in my opinion, where it was the back of the couch and the monitor could have fallen over and it was in front of the TV, and in my opinion, it wasn't a work from home environment that you would really strive for. I think some of the people who embrace this idea in some of their future design are people who will take advantage of the work from home need. There's also groups that are, doing co-working offices that people can be a part of, and there's also community offices, just large areas with large desk area that might take up your golf simulator space. But maybe, hopefully be used a little bit more. The last one is the environment. There's a lot of things that you can control around personal experience, and there's a lot of people who are changing and adapting in this direction, but the key idea is flexibility. Now, I don't really know how to approach this, and this is where there's a lot of questions. But there's groups like Landing who do basically a leasing subscription that's nationwide. If you're a member of Landing, you can live in New York for 3 months, go to Florida to another Landing office, and then you can end up in Southern California at another Landing office, but you don't have to stay there all year. You can stay there the time that you want. I brought this idea up to, it was actually a family member of mine who's a large investment group, and he actually liked the idea because he said, giving me more opportunity with shorter leases to increase rent would actually allow me more opportunity to stay with inflation when it comes to the real estate that I've invested in. And so a 6-month lease sometimes is more valuable to him because when somebody moves in, when someone else moves out, they're going to be able to renew at a higher rate. Now, that might be naive, and I'm not sure exactly how people are going to approach it, but I know that flexibility will be rewarded. Because again, remember that thought, if they're willing to leave their employer for lack of flexibility, they will be willing to leave their apartment.